Ethan Walker had seen many strange things during his years as a human explorer, but nothing prepared him for what he found that day on planet Varus 9. His ship had detected a distress signal coming from the Rocky Canyon area, where storms of blue lightning cracked across the sky every few minutes. Most travelers avoided this planet because the weather was too unstable. But Ethan had always been the type who couldn't ignore someone calling for help. His boots crunched over the dry red soil as he followed the weak signal. He adjusted his visor to block the harsh wind. The sky above roared like an angry beast. Pieces of burned metal were scattered across the ground, likely parts of a crashed alien ship. Smoke still rose from the wreckage. Ethan carefully moved aside a broken wing panel. And that was when he saw her. An alien woman lay unconscious among the ruins. She was taller than him, by at least a head and. Her skin was a soft shade of pale, silver with faint glowing patterns along her arms. She wore armor that was cracked and scorched, clearly damaged from the crash. Her hair was long and midnight blue, braided with small metallic bands. Even in her injured state, she looked strong. It's like someone who could lift him with one hand if she wished. Ethan quickly checked her pulse using his scanner. Still alive but weak. Her breathing was uneven. She had a deep burn mark on her leg and several cuts on her arms. Without wasting time, he pulled out a medical gel patch from his kit and pressed it against her wound. The gel hissed softly, sealing the injury to stop the bleeding. The alien woman stirred slightly but did not wake. "I've got you," Ethan said softly, even though she could not hear him. "Hang in there," carefully lifted her onto his back. Even with her heavy armor, he managed to carry her, step by step, toward his ship parked a few meters away. The wind howled louder as if warning him to hurry. Lightning struck nearby, and the ground shook. By the time he reached his ship's ramp, he was short of breath. He gently laid her down on the medical bed and activated the healing pod. The machine hummed as its lights scanned her body. Injecting nanobots to repair damaged tissue, Ethan stood by her side, wiping sweat from his forehead. He looked at her face. Even unconscious, her expression was stern, as if she was ready to wake up and punch whoever touched her. He chuckled to himself. "You look like the type who hates being helped." Hours passed before she finally opened her eyes. Her eyes were a blazing golden color, sharp and full of fire. She blinked at the bright lights of the ship's medical bay before turning her head slowly toward Ethan. For a few seconds, silence filled the room. She stared at him, and he stared back, unsure what to say. Finally, she spoke in a strong, rough voice. "Human." "Hello," Ethan replied, raising his hands in a peaceful gesture. "You were injured. I found you and brought you here to treat your wounds." Her face twisted with anger. She tried to sit up, but the healing pod's straps held her down gently. "Release me," she demanded. Ethan pressed a button, and the straps loosened. She pushed herself up quickly, but the moment she tried to swing her legs off the bed and stand, pain shot through her. Her injured leg trembled, and she almost fell. Ethan rushed forward to catch her, but she slapped his hands away. "Do not touch me." "Hey," Ethan backed off with his hands in the air. "I'm just trying to help." She clenched her teeth and forced herself upright again, gripping the edge of the pod. Her voice rose like thunder. "You call this love? I can't even stand." Ethan blinked, confused. "Love? What love?" "I just helped you because you were injured." She glared at him, furious. "Among my people, saving a warrior's life is a declaration of bond. You have claimed me as yours without my permission." Ethan nearly choked on his own breath. "What? No. That's not how humans work. We help people because it's the right thing to do, not because we want to. Claim them." She narrowed her eyes, studying him as if trying to find a lie on his face. "Do you expect a reward? A pledge? Servitude?" Ethan sighed. "No. I expect you to not fall over and break your leg again." She looked down at her trembling leg. Clearly frustrated by her own weakness, Ethan gently pulled a small crutch-like support device from the wall and extended it toward her. "You need support, at least until your leg heals." She stared at the device with hesitation. Pride warred with practicality. After a moment, she snatched it from his hand. I will take your tool. But do not think this makes us allies. Ethan shrugged. Fine by me. She hobbled across the room using the support. Every step was a battle between dignity and pain. Ethan followed at a safe distance, making sure she didn't collapse. What's your name? He asked. She didn't answer. Fine, I'll call you. Blue hair. She stopped and slowly turned her head, her golden eyes burning with disbelief. My name, she growled, is Kara of the Zareth clan, warrior of the Third Moon, daughter of Commander Thaler. Ethan nodded respectfully. Nice to meet you, Kara. I'm Ethan. Son of. A guy who fixes solar panels? She blinked, unsure whether he was joking or serious. Kara examined the room like a caged animal. She touched the smooth walls of the ship, looked at the control panels, and studied the small potted plant in the corner with suspicion. This is your den? She asked. It's my ship, Ethan corrected. It's not fancy, but it keeps me alive. She tilted her chin proudly. My people live in grand battle halls of silver and crystal. Our ceilings reach the sky. Our warriors feast upon the creatures of the mountains. Ethan pointed at his small nutrition pack on the table. I have protein bars. Kara stared at the packet. That looks like compressed dirt. Yeah, Ethan admitted. But it tastes like slightly flavored dirt. Want one? She scowled. I would rather starve. Ethan led her to the observation window where stars glittered like diamonds across the dark void. Kara stood silently, leaning on her support device, watching space with an intense expression. She did not thank him. She did not smile. But she also did not yell again. For a moment, there was peace, until Ethan casually said, You know, if you fall again, I'm totally catching you whether you like it or not. Kara slowly turned her head toward him. You touch me without permission, and I will remove your arm, Ethan grinned. Noted. Kara spent the next few hours silently inspecting everything in the ship. She refused to sit or rest. Ethan offered her food, water, and even a blanket. But she acted as if accepting any of it would be a defeat at one point. She tried to walk without the support, only to stumble again. Ethan instinctively moved to help, but she struck the wall with her fist in frustration. I will stand on my own. Her legs shook violently, but she stayed upright through sheer force of will. Ethan sighed. You know, where I come from, asking for help isn't weakness. She glared. Where I come from, depending on others, means death. A warrior must stand even when her body fails. Ethan leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. Then maybe your people need to learn that strength isn't just about standing alone. Kara looked at him for a long time, then turned away without a word. Night cycle came. Ethan dimmed the lights and prepared a resting pod for her. Kara refused to use it and instead sat on the floor. Refusing to show comfort, Ethan lay down in his own pod but couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about her words. You call this love? I can't even stand. She truly believed he had tried to claim her. Her people must have strange traditions. But underneath her anger, Ethan saw something else's fear. Not fear of him, but of being seen as weak. He whispered to himself. I'm not trying to control you, Kara. I just want you to live. Across the room, Kara's eyes were still open. She heard his words but did not reply. She looked at her own reflection in the metallic surface of the floor. She had been taught that needing help was shameful. But now, she was alive because a stranger chose to save her without asking for anything. She did not understand him, and that confused her more than any battle ever had. Kara woke before Ethan the next morning cycle. She did not need an alarm. Warriors of her kind trained their bodies to rise early. She stood slowly, still leaning on the support device Ethan had given her. Her injured leg ached, but she ignored the pain. Ethan was asleep in the nearby rest pod, snoring softly. His hair was messy and he had kicked off his blanket in the night. He looked far too relaxed for someone trapped in a small ship with an alien who had threatened to remove his arm. Kara stared at him for a moment. How can he sleep so peacefully? She thought, does he not fear me? On her planet, enemies were never trusted, Even allies were watched with caution. Yet this human slept inches away from her without worry. As if believing she would never harm him, she glanced at the tools on the wall, the access panel to the door, and then back at him. If I wished, I could end him before he even wakes, she thought. But she did not move. Something about that idea felt wrong. Ethan woke up eventually. Stretching and yawning loudly. "Morning," he said casually, as if he had woken up next to an old friend instead of a battle-hardened alien. Kara said, "Nothing." Ethan walked past her and pressed a button on the wall. The aroma of heated food filled the cabin. He pulled out 2 meal packs and placed one in front of her. She looked at it with suspicion. "It's just food," Ethan assured. "You don't have to like it. Just eat it so your body heals faster." Kara crossed her arms. "Warriors do not eat soft food from packets. We hunt." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You crashed on a lightning-filled rock. Unless you plan to throw spears at thunder, this is all you've got." Kara's eyes narrowed. Ethan grinned. "Tell you what, if you eat this, I'll let you call me weak for the next hour." Her expression changed slightly. She lifted the packet and took a cautious bite. It was bland but warm. She chewed slowly. Ethan leaned forward. "So, what do you think?" Kara swallowed. "It is not terrible," Ethan gasped dramatically. "Wow, high praise." She almost smiled, but quickly forced her face back to a stern expression. After breakfast, Ethan gathered a few mechanical pieces from his workbench. "Today we're doing mobility training," he announced. Kara frowned. "I do not need your training," right, Ethan replied. "Because earlier, when you tried to walk without support, you almost kissed the floor." Her cheeks colored. "I did not fall." "You almost did," he corrected. She glared. "Almost does not fall," Ethan chuckled. "Come on. Just humor me," Kara reluctantly agreed. Ethan activated a holographic projection in the middle of the room. It created a path made of glowing markers. "You'll walk from one end to the other," Ethan instructed. "If your leg gives out, lean on me." Kara scowled. "I will not lean on you." "Fine, lean on the wall. Or pretend you're too proud to collapse." Kara took a deep breath and stepped onto the glowing path. Her injured leg trembled, but she forced it forward. 1 step, 2 steps. 3, her knee bent suddenly. Her body tilted sideways. Ethan reached out, but Kara shoved his hand away and caught herself using the wall. "I said, I will not lean on you," she snapped. Yeah, Ethan said casually. "But I'm not leaving. So if you plan to fall, at least warn me." She continued walking. The path was short, but it felt like miles. By the time she reached the other end, sweat lined her forehead. She turned around and looked at Ethan with stubborn pride. "I told you. I stand." Ethan smiled softly. "You do?" Kara did not expect praise. It hit her harder than any insult could. Over the next few days, Ethan helped her rebuild her strength. They fell into a strange routine. She would wake early, walk the glowing path, practice stretching her leg, and glare at anything that suggested weakness. Ethan would make jokes, offer tools, and sometimes annoy her on purpose, just to see her react. One day he showed her how to repair a broken circuit. She watched closely, fascinated despite herself. "You humans build things like children stacking blocks," she said. Ethan laughed. "And you aliens design things like artists painting, sculptures. Our ways are different." Doesn't mean one is wrong, Kara thought about that. She had never considered that other cultures could be different without being lesser. As days passed, Kara's anger began to cool. She still spoke sharply, still refused unnecessary help, but she no longer saw Ethan as a threat. However, the more she healed, the more she felt uneasy. "Once I recover, I must leave," she reminded herself. A warrior does not stay in a stranger's den. Yet every time she thought about leaving, something inside her resisted. One evening, she confronted Ethan. "When will you release me?" Ethan blinked. "Release you? You're not my prisoner. Then why do you keep me here?" Ethan stared at her, surprised. "Because you're still healing. And because your ship is destroyed. And because if I left you outside, You'd try to fight the lightning. Kara crossed her arms. I would win, Ethan smirked. Sure. They fell silent. Kara looked out the observation window at the stars. She spoke quietly, almost to herself. On my planet, if someone saved my life, I would be bound to them, either as ally or servant. And which one do you think you are to me? Ethan asked gently. Kara hesitated. I do not know. You act like neither. Ethan leaned against the wall beside her. Because I don't see you as something I own. I see you as someone I helped. That's it. Kara turned her head toward him. Then why do you stay near me? Why do you keep speaking to me with patience? Why do you treat me as if I am equal? Ethan looked at her sincerely. Because you are. Kara's chest tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not even her own clan. The next morning, something unexpected happened. Kara woke up to find the support device missing. She looked around, confused. Ethan stood near the entrance, holding it behind his back. She glared. Return it. Ethan shook his head. Not today. Kara's eyes narrowed. Do not test me. Ethan smiled. Walk without it. Kara froze. Ethan stepped aside, opening space. You don't need it anymore. You're stronger now. Her heart pounded. She had grown used to leaning on the device. It was no longer just support. It was protection against failure. Ethan's voice was calm. I'll catch you if you fall. Kara clenched her fists. I said, I know. You'll remove my arm, Ethan finished. I'll risk it. For a long moment, Kara stood still. Then slowly, she lifted one foot and stepped forward. Her leg trembled, but held. Step after step. She crossed the room without falling. Ethan watched silently. Smiling with pride, Kara reached the other end and turned around. Her breathing was heavy, but her eyes were glowing not with anger, but something far brighter. Ethan clapped softly. Told you, Kara swallowed. I stood. Ethan nodded. You did. For the first time since arriving on the ship, Kara smiled. It was small, brief, and quickly hidden, but Ethan saw it. He didn't say anything. He didn't make a joke. He simply nodded. Sierra felt a warmth in her chest she could not name. Later that day, Kara sat near the observation window again, watching the stars. Ethan joined her with 2 hot drinks. He handed one to her. What is this? She asked. Something humans drink to relax. She sniffed it cautiously. It smells strange. Tastes stranger, Ethan admitted. She took a sip. Her eyes widened. It is pleasant, Ethan grinned. Told you. They sat in silence for a while. The stars drifted by slowly. Finally, Kara spoke softly. Ethan? Yeah. If I return to my people, they will ask why I stayed with you. Ethan looked at her. What will you tell them? Kara looked down at her cup. I do not know. Ethan took a sip of his drink. Tell them the truth. Kara turned her head. And what is the truth? Ethan looked at her calmly. That sometimes, help is just help. Not ownership. Not chains. Just kindness. Kara stared at him. Her heart felt heavy and light at the same time. She whispered, Humans are strange. Ethan smiled. We get that a lot. That night, Kara lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He says, I am not his. He expects nothing. Yet he stays. Why? She touched her chest gently. Why do I feel safe? She closed her eyes slowly. For the first time in her life, she fell asleep without fear. The morning on the ship began quietly, with the faint hum of the engines filling the cabin. Kara had regained much of her strength over the last few days. For the first time, she walked without leaning on any support. Her steps were cautious, but confident. A mix of pride and surprise at her own progress. Ethan, as always, was already up, tinkering with a small engine outside the living area. He glanced over when he saw her. A small smile appeared on his face. You're walking better every day, he said casually. Soon you'll be running circles around me. Kara glared at him. Do not assume I need your approval. I'm not assuming, Ethan replied. Just stating a fact. She shook her head, but there was a faint curve at the corner of her lips. She refused to acknowledge it fully. As the day progressed, Kara continued her rehabilitation exercises. Ethan had created a series of simple drills to help strengthen her leg and core, but he also encouraged her mind to remain sharp. They practiced spatial awareness exercises, problem-solving games, and even hand-to-hand simulations, carefully modified so she wouldn't strain her injured limb. During one session, Kara had to dodge holographic obstacles while maintaining balance on a narrow platform. Her movements were precise and deliberate. She jumped, spun, and landed firmly. She could almost hear the cheers of her warriors in her head, praising her discipline. "Not bad," Ethan said, his voice carrying genuine admiration. "Your reflexes are incredible." Kara paused mid-step, surprised by his tone. She had grown used to humans speaking casually, but he rarely offered compliments, especially not genuine ones. "Do not flatter me," she said, turning away. "I'm not flattering," Ethan replied. "Just stating the truth." She did not answer. Instead, she returned to the exercises with renewed determination. Later that day, Kara found herself in the observation room, staring at the stars. The vastness of space always fascinated her, but now it carried a strange sense of comfort. Ethan entered quietly, carrying 2 small cups of a steaming beverage. "You're not going to try and poison me this time?" Kara asked, her voice carrying a hint of amusement. "Nope," Ethan said, handing her a cup. "Just a simple drink to warm up." Kara took the cup cautiously and sipped. Her eyes widened. "It is enjoyable." "See? I told you humans know some things," Ethan said with a grin. They sat in silence, the stars stretching endlessly before them. It was peaceful, a rare moment where neither needed to prove anything. Kara's thoughts drifted back to her planet, her people, the expectations they had for her. "If I return now, they will expect me to speak of my time here as weakness," she thought. "But I have learned something different. Strength is not always about fighting alone." The peace was broken suddenly by an alarm. Red lights flashed across the cabin, and the ship's intercom blared, "Warning. Incoming vessel detected. Unknown hostiles approaching." Kara's eyes snapped open. Her body tensed. Ethan moved to the control panel. "They're scouts from your planet," Kara muttered. "They must have tracked me." Ethan nodded. "Stay behind me. We'll handle this." The enemy vessel approached quickly, sleek in silver, bristling with weapons. Kara's first instinct was to leap into action, but she knew she was still recovering. Her body was strong, but she could not risk a full confrontation yet. Ethan activated the ship's defensive systems. Laser turrets rotated, shields activated, and the small ship hummed with energy. Kara stood beside him, gripping the edge of the console for balance. "Ready?" Ethan asked, his eyes meeting hers. Kara nodded. "Do not underestimate them." The battle began. Beams of light sliced through the void, striking the hull of Ethan's ship. The vessel shook under the force. Alarms rang continuously. Kara attempted to step forward, her instincts screaming to fight. She had trained her entire life for moments like this. But her leg, though strong, still ached from her crash and recent exercises. She faltered. Ethan noticed immediately and moved between her and the console. "Stay behind me," he said calmly, his hand on hers briefly to steady her. Kara's pride flared. "I am not a child." She snapped. "I know," Ethan said gently. "But even the strongest warriors need help sometimes." For a moment she wanted to argue, but as the enemy vessel fired another volley, something inside her shifted. She realized she could not face this alone, nor did she have to. With a deep breath, Kara stepped forward. She raised her hands, channeling energy from the implants in her armor. A wave of force shot toward the enemy, deflecting incoming fire. The beam was not perfect, but it held enough to buy Ethan time. Ethan manipulated the ship's controls. Firing strategically at weak points in the enemy vessel, Kara adjusted her stance, using her agility to counter incoming attacks and protect the ship's critical systems. Together, they created a rhythmo-synchronized dance of defense and offense. Hours or maybe minutes, Time felt strange past in this intense coordination. Finally, with one precise maneuver, the enemy vessel's engines were disabled. Forcing it to retreat, Kara collapsed against the floor, exhausted but triumphant. Ethan immediately went to her side. "You did amazing," he said, helping her sit. Kara gasped for breath, trying to regain control of her pride. "Did not expect to rely on a human." Ethan smiled. "You didn't have to. You chose to." Kara's eyes softened. No one had ever spoken to her like this before. Not her mentors, not her family. "Choose to help. Choose to trust," she thought. Those words carried more weight than any battle honor. As the adrenaline faded, Kara looked around the room and noticed small details she had overlooked before: the warmth of the cabin, the hum of the engines, the quiet strength of Ethan beside her. She realized that she felt safe here in a way that she had never known on her planet. Ethan gently touched her shoulder. "You'll be okay now," he said. Kara did not pull away. Instead, she let herself relax. She had always believed that vulnerability was weakness. But now she understood that strength could include accepting help and standing with someone who truly cared. She looked at him, golden eyes meeting brown. "I do not know what to call this feeling," she admitted softly. Ethan tilted his head. "Call it trust. Call it respect. Call it whatever you like. Just don't be afraid of it." Kara felt warmth in her chest, a strange fluttering sensation she had never experienced. Pride warred with gratitude, but for the first time she allowed herself to acknowledge it. Days passed. Kara continued her exercises, but now she walked with confidence. She trained alongside Ethan, learning from his human techniques, improvising, and mixing them with her warrior skills. Their bond grew not as captor and captive, not as master and servant, but as equals. One evening, Kara stood on the observation deck, watching a distant star cluster. Ethan joined her silently. "You've changed," he said. Kara raised an eyebrow. "I have not. I am still a warrior." "Not that," Ethan said. "You've let someone in. You've accepted help without feeling shame. That's not weakness. That's courage." Kara considered his words. They made sense, but they felt strange to admit. "I suppose," she said slowly, "it is. Different." Ethan smiled, offering his hand. "Then let's face the universe together." Kara hesitated for a heartbeat, then took it. Not as a prisoner, not as someone forced, but as a choice. She stood beside him, not behind him, not above him. They were partners, human and alien, warrior and explorer. Two beings who had learned from one another. The next cycle brought news from the planet below. Scouts of Kara's clan had detected unusual energy readings, likely from the skirmish. Kara knew they would come, expecting her to report. But this time, she felt no fear. When they arrived, she met them confidently. "I am Kara of the Zareth clan," she declared. "I have returned stronger, wiser, and alive, because I chose to stand with a human." The scouts looked confused at first. Her voice was strong, her posture proud. "This human is not my master. He is not my servant. He is my ally. And together, we have proven that strength comes not only from pride, but from trust and courage." The scouts, uncertain and awed, nodded. Some of them had witnessed the retreat of their comrades during the attack and now understood the power of collaboration between different beings. Kara turned to Ethan. "You have my respect," she said. Ethan smiled. "And you have mine." From that moment on, Kara and Ethan continued their journey through the stars. They faced challenges, fought threats, and explored strange worlds, but now they did so together. Understanding that true strength was not measured by standing alone, but by choosing to stand with someone worthy, Kara had learned that accepting help did not diminish her power. In fact, it made her stronger. And Ethan had learned that humans, with their compassion and patience, could touch even the proudest of warriors in ways no force could ever match. The stars stretched endlessly before them, filled with unknown dangers and unseen wonders, and for the first time, Kara felt a strange, thrilling certainty, no matter what came next. she would not face it alone. She looked at Ethan and finally allowed herself to smile, fully a smile that carried both gratitude and an unspoken bond that went beyond words. Together, they stood, not just as rescuer and rescued, not just as human and alien, but as equals, as friends. And perhaps something even more, the galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and dangerous, but for Kara and Ethan, it had become a place where trust, courage, and companionship were stronger than any weapon. And as the ship moved forward, cutting through the starlight, Kara whispered softly,